Scotland's weather pattern is changing, with water scarcity predicted to occur more frequently. How can land managers prepare? Management decisions you make now could greatly help you cope with water shortages in the future. In this three-part video series, we will discuss how you can mitigate and prepare for water scarcity on farm, discussing hazard, exposure and your vulnerability. In this video, we will discuss how to assess and understand your vulnerability on farm. When we discuss vulnerability on farm, we mean how well can your farm handle reduced water for a prolonged time period. Basically, how prepared are you? And in doing so, looking at the crew guidance document, we'll then go through the different ways you can assess your vulnerability. So using the crew guidance document, you can then look to see your vulnerability in terms of storage days. So how much water you have here and now based on what you think you need. For example, if the water ran out tomorrow, do you know how much you have and if you have enough available to see you through? In order to reduce your vulnerability, the first thing you want to consider is your soil health. So if you can improve your soil's organic matter and its water holding capacity, that's going to greatly help with rain-fed crops to reduce that pressure for irrigation. Other things you can do in terms of the soil structure is to understand it in itself, how much water it can hold, what pores it has, and also the region that you're in and the soil type too. So as we're talking about vulnerability, we're obviously standing in a potato field at the moment, and this particular grower has a weather station installed in the field, and this weather station can map the rainfall in millimetres, the relative humidity, the temperature, but it's also got a soil moisture probe. So that can then tell him the soil moisture deficit. It measures at a depth of 30 to 50 centimetres, and it can help with irrigation scheduling. So it really is doing everything that it needs in order to know your vulnerability and what water you need to apply in this particular crop. So capturing this data from the weather station, it comes to the phone in the way of an app, and you can interpret the information from the app, keep the data. You can then check to see what the status is of the soil going into next week, and then make decisions on the back of the status essentially. So understanding your soil is key to water efficiency. If you know that it is likely to go to wilting point when it's super dry, or if it's going to go to saturation just with a little bit of moisture, you want to know where that range is and where the field capacity lies. So field capacity is where we want it to be in terms of the most readily available moisture to that crop. So in order to do that, we need to know what soil type we have, aggregate size, structure, and we want to limit compaction, for example. So in this particular field, it's likely to be a sandy loam. It's been well cultivated because it needs to be a nice friable soil for the seed potato to grow and for the root structure to form. So it's likely that we're going to find a very well drained and productive soil in this field. So it's important to understand and risk assess your vulnerability in order to then make plans for mitigation in the future, and knowing what crops require irrigation and when, or livestock needs as well. It's important to create a vulnerability plan in order to know what your crop demands require or your livestock needs in order to find the mitigation and put plans in place to address that. If you take all the different scores from each of the scoring matrix, from your vulnerability, your hazard, your exposure, you can then build a drought-resistant plan, and that then helps you understand the business requirements going forward and how you might mitigate against water scarcity into the future. It's important to understand your water management across the farm, across all of Scotland, because once we were deemed a bit of a wet country, that no longer applies. We've had years of drought and weather extremes, whether that is drought or periods of frequent extreme rainfall. So we now must become more resilient in our businesses in order to cope with those weather extremes.